Hey everybody, welcome back to Tech Talk Education. This is Dr. Heldman talking to you. It is a very, very snowy Thursday here in Colorado. We've gotten about 8 inches right in the Denver area right now, and I guess it's going to continue snowing through Friday night, so quite the dumper we're getting here. In this movie, I want to talk about some more of Kali Linux. I'm just going to keep going down the road with Kali. I had someone put a comment on the last video asking about Parrot versus Kali, and I wanted to tell you guys that that Kali is the big dog, like it's the 800-pound, gorilla in the Linux cybersecurity software distro world. But Parrot's out there and it's a good app, but I recommend that you concentrate on and learn everything you can about Kali. So in this movie, we're just going to go over one of the tools that Kali has that you may not have in other Linux distros, and I don't think you have in Windows, and it's called hping. And the reason for this is because it is definitely a part of pen testing. You might be asked a question on a pen test exam about hping, and so it's good to know about it. So let's get started. This will be a short movie, probably not much longer than the intro. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm in Kali here. I'm in the Oracle VirtualBox in my Kali VM, and I have opened the terminal here. Let me show you how I got there. Now, the one thing you should know is that the screen is really black. This terminal window is really dark, and so you might not be able to see the buttons up here. You can see the X button here, but you can't see that you've got a minimize button right there, just like in Windows, and you've got a maximize button. I'm going to kill this. The way I got here was I clicked right here. If I click on the terminal emulator window, it will open the terminal emulator for me. I also have the choice of, let me see if I can open that again. There we go. I also have the choice of the root terminal emulator. Now, how do I get at that? I'll show you that in just a minute. And then you should also be aware that it supports PowerShell, so that's pretty cool. All right, now I'm computer Kali. I'm user Kali. We have a username. We have a computer name or a host name, and we're going to use the term host quite often. So this is our username, Kali, and this is a substitute for the @ sign. Normally in Linux distros, it will say username @ computer name, but in this case, Offensive Security put in this cool little K there, so you know you're working with Kali. It's just kind of cool. And then this is my computer name. And you recall that it's not the equivalent of a NetBIOS name, but the idea is that I have a name for the computer here. And I'm at home. The tilde key tells me that I'm at home. Let me demonstrate. So if I do a CD into the Etsy folder, my prompt, this whole thing is called the prompt. My prompt has changed, and now I'm at /Etsy. What does that mean? Well, let me see if I can show this to you. I'll go in, just do a CD/. That takes me to the root. Now I'm at what is called root. I'll open up the file system here for you so you can see both of them. And this right here, where I'm looking at file system, this symbol here is root. And so that means I'm at the very top of the hierarchy, and I can see all of the folders beneath me. Everything inside the Linux file system is visible now. Bin, boot, dev, Etsy, home, and so forth. If I change to home, what I'm doing is I'm CD/Etsy, excuse me, I said change to home, I meant change to Etsy. Now that's equivalent to going into the Etsy folder like that. And so I can see things that are inside here. Well, I did all that, first of all, to show you that there's a thing called root. This / key means root. So what this is really doing is saying change into the root and then go find the Etsy folder. And that's where we're at right now. But now suppose that I want to go home. So you could type in CD space tilde. A tilde is in the upper left-hand side of your keyboard, and hit enter, and it works just fine. It takes you right home, and you can tell because you see the tilde here. However, if I go back to Etsy, I don't need to type in cd space tilde. The tilde is hard to find and hard to get typed in there. You can just type in cd enter, and it'll take you back to home. So there you go. Now we're going to use a command called ping first. You need to know that you need to know as much as you can possibly learn about transmission control protocol, internet protocol. It's called TCP/IP, and it is not a protocol. It is thousands of protocols. There's a lot of protocols involved in the TCP/IP suite, and please trust me, these hackers know about TCP/IP. They know it very, very well because all of the magic happens using TCP/IP. So you got to know it. You got to pledge to yourself that you're going to be a TCP/IP expert as soon as possible. And one of the commands that you have is called ping. Now what ping is doing is it's using a protocol called Internet Control Message Protocol, ICMP. ICMP. It's one of the baseline protocols that came with TCP/IP way back in the day. I remember going to Network World back in 1994, and they were talking about TCP/IP and how it was going to revolutionize the industry, and it did. And so, ICMP has been around a while. Now, the idea with ping, ping is a utility. It's an executable that you're using, and what you want to do is you want to go see if another computer is alive out there. So in this case, I said, hey, is Microsoft.com alive out there? Let's go see if it is. Boom. Now it responds, and your problem with this, with Linux here, is it's going to go and go and go. It will not stop pinging, so you do a Control-C to get it to stop. Now, sit with me and imagine. Suppose it's, late 90s, early 00s, and somebody says, some hacker says, hey, man, here's this address for Microsoft.com, and what would happen if I ping it and I just ping it with a Linux machine and it just goes and goes and goes and I never ever stop it? What's going to happen is that machine's out there saying, hey, Microsoft.com, are you alive? 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 And I know that's monotonous, but that's what it's doing. Well, imagine if I had, say, 10,000 Linux computers in a botnet all over the world hitting Microsoft going, are you alive? Are you alive? Are you alive? Are you alive? This is called a denial of service. So if I do a DOS attack with one computer, it's called single DOS, and I can make the computer work so hard responding to ping requests that it doesn't get a chance to go and answer other requests from the system or from other people that are trying to get into the system. If I do a distributed denial of service attack, a DDoS, that's using 8, 10, 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000 computers to do the same thing, and it's just bludgeoning that network card on that server to respond to these requests. It's called a DDoS attack. Now, it's known about now, and so you can imagine that people like Microsoft understand a DDoS. You're going to have to know about a DDoS. But my point here is that ping is very, very powerful. What ping is doing is it's saying, are you alive? And then Linux doesn't stop pinging until you Control-C to get out of it. Furthermore, you can see here that it is using the ICMP protocol to do that. This is called an echo request. So what you're doing is saying, hey, are you alive out there? Well, yes, I'm alive. And so it comes back and says, yes, I'm alive. And it gives you the IP address for that server. This is valuable information right here. This is how a black hat hacker is going to start doing what they're doing. This is how a pen tester is going to start doing what they're doing. They're querying computers. They're getting names of computers. And as a matter of fact, they're getting really good information like where this is being responded to from. So this is kind of cool. I know that there's a computer out there called E13678 and so forth. And so now I've got a lot more information than I have with just a ping command. So it goes beyond that, and ICMP can be hacked in other ways. But I want you to know ICMP by default on the Windows computers, Windows 10, 11, I think even 7 did it, even earlier, the Windows firewall turns off ICMP. So on a local client, like just, Joe at his computer, at home or even at work running Windows, you're not going to be able to ping that computer because by default ICMP is turned off. It's disabled because we don't want somebody doing a denial of service attack against that Windows box. And truthfully, if you're thinking about users in an office building or you sitting at home, how likely are you to have somebody ping your computer? That doesn't seem like that would be a likely thing. But servers, that's a different story. Okay, so that is the ping command. Now I'm going to clear the screen. There is a command called hping. So if I type in hping3, hping3 is quite the little tool because it goes above and beyond a simple ping command. It can be used to bypass ICMP or to exploit ICMP, and it can talk to different protocols. Now, what does that mean? ICMP is a protocol that's responsible for echoing back that I'm alive to somebody that's requesting that from me. ICMP can be exploited. There are other things inside the protocol that can be used, and expert hackers know about them. Well, there are also a couple of other protocols you should know about. One's called TCP, and I think we talked about that in a previous movie. TCP would be like when you're going to call your mom. I made a joke. You call your mom, so on the phone it's just you, your mom, and the National Security Agency. It's a joke. But the idea is that you have a TCP connection. It's secure and it's managed. So we're managing all those packets that go across the wire, those pieces of information that are talking to the host. That's TCP. You use it every day. Like if you log on to Amazon, you're using TCP plus a slug of other protocols to be very, very secure. So TCP is more secure because it's a connected protocol, and we're managing that. We're making sure that all those packets get there where they need to go. They get received, and if they're not received, they get resent and reassembled. Well, so hping3 can talk to TCP, but so can ping. hping3, there's another protocol called UDP, and UDP stands for Uniform Datagram Protocol, and it's just little pieces of data. So these are discrete pieces of data, packets we're sending out over the wire, and essentially the difference is if I'm on TCP, I'm on my phone with my mom. If I'm using UDP, I just take my data and throw it out on the wire and say, go, get there. And it just goes out and finds its way to the destination, and then the message is reassembled. So TCP is quite a bit more elaborate. UDP is pretty basic. hping3 can use both TCP and UDP. Now, we talked about the man page. So if I type in man hping3, typically a man page is included with all of these software products. So spacebar takes you down a page, but you can see there's a ton of switches here. You can send arbitrary TCP/IP packets to network hosts, meaning that you can send packets through TCP that really shouldn't be there. So this is quite the hacker's tool here. And you have all of these different switches here. And so if I hit spacebar, I'll go down a page. I usually have a description here that tells me what it does. And then I have other information. It can test firewalls. It can do port scanning. What does that mean? Well, what that means is that when I'm using TCP/IP protocols, every protocol is assigned a unique number. Let me show that to you. And the unique number, here's a good example here on the right-hand side. I'll zoom in on that so you can see it. Every protocol in the TCP/IP stack, well, not every, but most, have what's called a port number associated with them. So you can see on the list here, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which is a TCP/IP protocol that's responsible for web browsing, listens on port 80. So if you can memorize HTTP equals port 80, you'll have a lot of that battle done. That'll be really good. And if I'm being honest with you, if we find HTTP 80 open, that could signal a real problem because it is very, very hackable. We don't like to see unsecure ports like that open. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if you've ever been out surfing and you try to hit a site and your browser comes up and says, this is unsafe. Likely is not. It's hit an HTTP-based site. The equivalent of that, the security equivalent, is HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, and it listens on port 443. So when we go back here and we're looking at this port scanning, we're saying, hey, this has the ability to scan other ports besides what ping is doing, what ICMP is doing. You can test network performance. You can get the packet size. So hping is a big deal. And so this is some more about the switches. Now I want you to notice here when you're using the man page, this is pretty new. I mean, it's a few years old, but you'll get this TAC H. So if you typed in hping3 space TAC H, it would bring up a help screen for hping3. However, we also support the command tac help. Now this is really common anymore. The idea is back in the day we had this single letter switch, this single letter option. So TAC H would give me help. That's almost always the way it is in Linux. There's a TAC H assigned to that. So they had to write the TAC H into the program is what I'm trying to say. But of late, we're going with this tac stuff as well, and I think it has to do with cutting down on the amount of confusion that these different switches have. So I'm going to quit here and show you. I'm going to hit my up arrow, and instead of doing man hping3, which brings up the manual page for it, I'm going to do a tac help and hit enter. And now you get a little bit shorter description of what it's able to do. So if you're like, okay, I don't want to read the entire man page because it's pretty laborious. All I want to do is see what the heck is out there, what this command is about. That's what the help screen does for you. So if I clear the screen, that screen will also work with just tac help. So just a single tap, tac, and that'll work as well. So it does exactly the same thing. So you should be aware that most Linux commands today support tac help. And if I'm doing man hping3, you'll see that you have quite a few tac sitting out there. Tac version, tac count. This one even allows you to do just count, just the word count. We'll see what that looks like in just a minute. So just be aware that when you have these commands, these terminal commands, and you have options that you want to pass into those commands, you might have more than one choice for an option that you can use for a given command. I'll quit to get out of here. Okay. Now, all that said, let's go ahead and let's ping somebody. So let me do this. I'm going to just type in ping Microsoft, and I'm going to do a Control-C as soon as I get a response from it. There it is, Control-C. And I'm going to get this guy right here. What I want to do is I want to right-click and copy this selection like that. Now I've got that in the paste buffer in Kali Linux, and I can go ahead and clear the screen. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say hping3. Now I've got some switches that I need to supply. I want to tell it that I want to test TCP, so I'm going to do a TAC S. Capital S. That's another thing I should have told you is that these switches can be confusing because you might have a TAC S and a little s, a TAC T and a little TAC T. So that's one of the reasons the man page is helpful, because you can find out what switches do and how you apply them with a given command. Now I'm going to do a TAC P for the port, and the port number is going to be 80. And then I'm going to right click and paste in that IP address. And now what I'm going to do is a TAC count, and I'm going to have it count 4 times for me. So this is a little bit more laborious, and if I'm being honest with you, this is very, very much like you would find a typical Linux command. Like you've got the command, and then it has different switches that you can apply to be able to get it to do one job or another. So in this case, we're telling it that we want S is going to be the TCP, port is 80, this is the IP address, count is 4. Let's hit enter. It can't open the socket. Well, why? Because it can't open a TCP socket against this particular computer. It's telling me that TCP on this website at port 80 is not going to work for me. Now, before I go too much further, I want you to know about the SYN flags. So I'm going to go TCP SYNAC. And I just want to show this to you real quickly here. So if you look at the picture over here, I'll zoom into it so you can see it. This is a pretty good diagram, and if you go out and you look for SYNAC, TCP SYNAC, you'll see a bunch of different diagrams, and this will give you a pretty good idea about what's happening here. The idea is that you've got a host P and a host Q. What is a host? Well, in the world of TCP/IP today, it's not just computers that have TCP/IP addresses. It can be a lot of things like doorbells, IoT stuff, servers, routers, switches, cameras, printers. So instead of saying, oh, that's a printer, that's a camera, we call it a host. So what the word host means is this thing has a TCP/IP address. So in this case, let's say that it's somebody going out to Amazon, it's host P, and they want to talk to Amazon. They want to set up a secure connection. So they go out to Amazon.com, which is host Q. And they say SYN. Well, now SYN stands for synchronize. I want to synchronize with you. So I'm going to buy something, Amazon. I want to synchronize with you. And Amazon says, coolio, that's great. I want your money. And so what it does then is it sends an ACK. So it's a receive SYN. So the idea here is that I've said, hey, I want to connect to you, Amazon. Amazon says, cool. I acknowledge that you want to connect to me. And then what you have to do is acknowledge the acknowledgement. So you send back an ACK. And then the TCP session is set up. So we can do the same thing by using this S thing right here. And what this is doing is sending a SYN flag to that server to say, hey, I want to connect to you. So that's what's happening there. So let's go over this real quickly so you've got this. So a basic SYN command, synchronized command, it's hping3, TAC S, TAC port number, then you have your target IP address, and then you have your count, some number. That's the basic syntax for a SYN attack using hp3. And you can replace the port. You can do 80, you can do 443, whatever you'd like to do. You could also do what's called a flood. So instead of this S here, let's go back here. And let's tell it that we want to do a TAC flood. This is a distributed denial of service attack right here. So we're going to flood this thing on a port number with requests. So this checks connectivity by flooding that port with a certain hping3 request. This could get pretty verbose, and it could bring down a computer. So the idea is if you're a pen tester is someone that's like a black hat hacker, but they're doing it on behalf of a company. They have a contract with a company to go in and see if they can get into the servers and the equipment, the routers and switches and so forth, get to hosts and things like that. So pen testers do this on a daily basis, and tools like this are useful to help us find out if ports are open, to help us find out if it's alive, if it responds to certain requests and things like that. So the flood request would be one that we might want to use if we were a pen tester. By the way, CompTIA has a great certification. It's called Pen Test Plus. I know all of you want to be pen testers. You've got to work your way up in the ranks. Pen testing isn't something that happens immediately. So get your certifications. Get your A+, your Network Plus, your Security Plus, Linux Plus. CISA Plus, and then go grab Pentest Plus, because that's almost the top of the hierarchy there. Another thing that you can use hping3 for is you can customize packets. So this is where its real danger point is. This is going to require more study on your part. But the idea is a packet is an assemblage of things. Suppose that I have an envelope. I put a lotto ticket inside the envelope. I put a business card inside the envelope. I put a sticky note with some information inside the envelope. It's got all these different things inside there, and then I seal it and send it to you. That is a packet. So packets have different areas where some information is contained, and you can craft packets. So you could go ahead and create packets that are really bogus in an effort to, say, bypass an intrusion detection system or get into a computer in that way. So this packet crafting is a huge part of hping3. So that is hping3, and it's pretty cool. And I want to let you know that it is something that you will find on, like, for example, Pentest Plus, in Pentest Plus courses. You might even find a question or two on the Pentest Plus certification exam. So hping3 is like a super ping. It's been written and designed to be used to gain more information, and so that's what it's about. I hope this has been helpful. Please like and share and subscribe. Feel free to comment, and I will talk to you guys in the next movie. Have a great day.